Hello again. We will be going to the next lecture today. We will be discussing on discrete probability distributions. The reference books for this topic are presented here. Montgomery and Runger's book, Applied Statistics and Probability for Engineers, 5th edition, Wiley, India, 2011. And then you have the book by Ogunnaike, Random Phenomena, by CRC Press. In the previous lecture, we saw about random variables. When we conduct a random experiment, we are unsure about its outcome, and so the different possible values are called as random variables, and they may take some specific real values. The possible values of random numbers may be discrete entities, or they may be continuous range of numbers. What I mean by continuous range of numbers is it may be falling between a lower value and a upper value, or a lower limit and an upper limit, if you want it like that. But in between these two limits, it can take any possible value. As an example, if the random variable mole fraction is considered from a experiment, a distillation experiment for example, the mole fraction can take values only between 0 and 1, both included, but in between 0 and 1 it can take any value, 0.12, 0.123, 0.1234, whatever. It depends upon the accuracy of your measurement device. Of course, the calculator can give any value of the mole fraction running up to 7 or 8 digits. So the mole fraction is a continuous random variable here. But when you throw a die, you will find that the die can take only discrete values, for example 1 or 2 or 3 up to 6. In this case, the random values or the random number values are discrete. So we are going to talk about a very interesting function, the probability mass function. The probability mass function f of x assigns a probability value to each of the discrete values of x. There is a typo here which I am correcting. So earlier it was capital X here, f of capital X, now it has been changed to f of small x. If you recollect, the random variable function has converted the original sample space into real numbers, and these numbers are assigned probability values. This we covered in one of the previous lectures. So the random variable may take discrete values x1, x2, so on to xn. So we now define a probability mass function and denote it as f of xi. And the role of the probability mass function is to assign a probability value to each of the possible values xi. So please note the definition again. probability of x is equal to xi. That means what is the probability that the random variable capital X takes the value small xi, and that is given by the probability mass function f of xi, f of xi. Okay. When you write down the statements pertaining to statistical calculations, you have to make sure that the terminology you use is correct. Okay, the notation you use is correct. You cannot write f of xi. Okay, you don't have capital Xi, you have only small xi. You have capital X and small xi, but you don't have capital Xi. Okay, because once a random variable is assigned a value, it becomes small x of I. And as we stated earlier, f of xi should be greater than or equal to 0 for all the values of xi, all the possible values of xi. That means that the probability values are all positive. Now, the other important thing to observe about the probability mass function f of xi is the sigma I equals 1 to n f of xi should be equal to 1. It means that the sum of all the probabilities is equal to 1. You have different entities, each entity is having a probability value, and the probability values are assigned by the probability mass function in such a way that when you add the total probabilities, they should be equal to 1. Okay. The probability value assigned to each of the xi may be same or they may be different. Okay. For example, the probability of a number coming up, let us say 1, when you throw a fair die is 1 by 6. Similarly, the probability of a number 2 coming is also 1 by 6. So, you have 6 numbers and all of them share the same probability of 1 by 6. Okay. On the other hand, there may be other examples where you may have a discrete number of possible outcomes, but all of them need not have the same probability value. Okay. They may be having different fractional probability values, but when you add them up, they should become equal to 1. That is very important. Mu is equal to E of x. Okay. That is the mathematical notation. Here mu means the mean of the probability distribution. Okay. E of x means the expected value of the random variable x. Okay. The expected value of the random variable x is defined as mu is equal to sigma I equals 1 to n xi f of xi. Okay. The mean is also referred as the average. Okay. And when you take any cricketer, okay, and he has gone and performed in a test match series, or even when he is coming out to bat after the previous wicket had fallen, okay, the first thing which is shown on TV is the number of matches he has played, the number of runs he has scored, and then the average. Okay. The average is a measure of his overall performance. Okay. If a batsman has scored an average of 50, then he is supposed to be very good, but it does not mean that he will score 50 in the current innings. He may score 100 or he may score a duck. Okay. So, the mean refers to the center of the probability distribution. Okay. Imagine you have a long scale, and on the scale you have markings corresponding to the possible values of the random variables. Okay. And each of these values will have a probability assigned to it. Okay. Let us say that you have numbers 1, 2 and 3, and each of these numbers 1, 2 and 3 will have a probability value assigned to it. Okay. Number 1 may have a probability of 0.2, number 2 may have a probability of 0.3, and number 3 may have a probability of 0.5. Okay. So, you put coins on the scale, or you put weights on the scale adjust on these numbers. You put weights, and you put the weights in such a way that it is proportional to the probability value. Okay. So, if you put coins for number 2, you put more coins for number 3, and you put even more coins for number 5. The number of coins or weights you put for these values will be in proportion. Okay. And then you put the scale on a knife edge and see where the knife edge will balance. Okay. And the knife edge will balance at the mean value. Now, let us come to the variance. We know from our earlier discussion, because of the variability in the data, you had to find the average. The batsman was not scoring 50 in all the innings. Okay. He was scoring 0 in one, 100 in the next, 30 in the third, 70 in the fourth. So, when you take an average over a long period of time, you get the average of 50. So, the performance of the batsman is variable. Okay. And that is why you had to find the mean or average value. Now, the variability is quantified in terms of another parameter called as variance. We refer to it as variance of the random variable x, and that is defined as the expected value of the deviation of the random variable from the mean squared. Okay. So, what you do is you first find the deviation of the random variable from the mean mu and then square it. This is called as deviation squared, and the expected value of this deviation squared, or the expected value of the square of the deviation, is equal to sigma squared. Okay. So, now by using the definition for expectation, we write V of x is equal to sigma is equal to 1 to n xi minus mu whole squared f of xi. Okay. Please do not forget to put f of xi. Okay. You may recollect that the sum of all the deviations from the mean will be equal to 0. When you square the deviations from the mean, you take the sum, they will not be equal to 0. Okay. And each of such squared deviations, okay, should be multiplied by the corresponding f of xi. When you expand this, sigma is equal to 1, you get xi squared f of xi minus mu squared. This derivation is quite simple, and you may want to try it out yourself. The variance is a useful measure as it indicates the spread of the probability distribution. Okay. Even if there are two distributions having the same mean or average, it does not imply that they should have the same variances. You may have the same average, but you may have different variances. For example, in one class the average may be 50, in another class the average may be 50. Okay. But in the first class the lowest mark may have been 20 and the highest mark may have been 100. Okay. So, average is still 50 when you add up all the marks and divide by the total number. In the second class, the lowest mark may have been 40 and the highest mark may have been 60 and the average would have been 50. Okay. There is lot more variation in the first class. in the marks when compared to the marks in the second class, even though both of them had the same average. By definition, the square root of the variance is the standard deviation. Variance is denoted by sigma squared, and so standard deviation is denoted by sigma. As I said earlier, we should look at the notation or terminology issues whenever we use the language of statistics. Okay, the grammar has to be correct. So, let us look at some of the notation issues in the usage of the probability mass function f of xi. Okay. So, can we denote the probability mass function as f of x instead of f of xi? Okay. You cannot put capital X in the argument of the probability distribution function or the probability mass function. Okay. It should be f of small xi. So, writing the probability mass distribution as f of capital X is equal to capital X plus 3 by 25 makes no sense. Okay. If the possible random sample space values are 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, then to find the probability of the occurrence of one of these values xi, we use the notation f of xi and not f of capital Xi. Okay. The following form which I have shown here is correct. F of the random variable x taking a value xi is given by f of xi, and that is equal to xi plus 3 by 25. Okay. This is correct notation. The function f of xi becomes alive and takes a value only when the random experiment has been performed and x, the random variable capital X, can take a particular value xi. Okay. Before throwing the dice or before throwing a die, the random variable was x. Once you have thrown the die, perhaps when playing a game of Ludo or snake and ladders, you know what is the value shown by the die, and then that value is xi. Okay. Then you can find what is the probability of this number xi equals 1 or 2 occurring, and you can estimate that value. Sometimes you may not even know the probability beforehand. Okay. In the case of a die, you know that all numbers are equally probable, and so you can beforehand itself say that probability of a number 1 occurring is equal to 1 by 6. But there are many random experiments whose outcome is not known for sure, and you also cannot predict what that probability of that outcome is going to be. Okay. So, you have to conduct the random experiment, obtain the value of xi, and then find out the value of f of xi, the probability value. Okay. Generally, we can represent the probability density function. Sorry, it is not probability density function. Probability density function is used for continuous distributions. Now we are dealing only with discrete distributions. So, the probability distribution function or the probability mass function f of x is given by x plus 3 by 25, small x is used throughout. And this function is evaluated at each possible value of xi. Okay. So, we saw about the mean. When we write the definition for mean mu, we write it as expected value of capital X. Okay. Expected value of the discrete random variable x, capital X. Mu is equal to E of x, but it is not equal to xi f of xi, where the xi's are capital Xi. This is wrong. When we actually go about calculating the expected value, then we use small x and f of xi, and the argument in f of xi is also small xi. Okay. So, do not use capital Xi in f of xi, use xi into f of small xi when finding the value of mean. So, this is important notation or terminology. Similarly, when you are defining the variance of the random variable x, it is expected value of E of x minus mu whole square is equal to sigma squared. But this should not be written as sigma is equal to 1 x minus mu whole squared f of x. Okay. You should not use capital X here, but you should rather use small xi. We will take a simple example. Okay. So, let there be a lot of n balls of which B are blue in color and the remaining are red. Okay. I am sure that this kind of problems or variance of this problem you would have seen several times in the past. So, let us define the random variable as the number of blue balls that have been picked. The random experiment is performed by taking 2 picks from the lot. Okay, you take one ball, note the color, put it back, take the next ball, note the color and then put it back. Okay. So, this is called as picking and replacing. Let P denote the probability of picking up a blue ball and Q the probability of picking up the red ball. Okay. And the question is, you have to define the original sample space, the random variable space, the probability mass function and verify whether its properties are satisfied. Okay. To summarize, P is the probability of picking a blue ball and Q is the probability of picking the red ball. So, we have to find the original sample space, random variable space, probability mass function and see whether the properties are satisfied. The original sample space is given by BB, BR, RB, RR. Okay. So, the first event is both of them are blue balls. The next event may be blue ball and red ball or red ball and blue ball. It is also possible that you pick up 2 red balls. Okay. So, since the random variable x was defined as picking up the number of blue balls, okay, so the random variable x is denoting the number of blue balls which have been picked from the random experiment. You have the possibility of 0 blue ball or 1 blue ball, okay, either of these two, or 2 blue balls. Okay. So, these are the possible outcomes expressed in the form of the random variables, okay, which take the values of 0, 1 and 2. Okay. The possible outcomes are no blue ball, 1 blue ball or 2 blue balls. So, the original sample space which was having 4 entities was reduced to only 3 entities in the random variable space. So, the probability of the random variable taking 0, okay, that means no blue balls have been picked. Then both the balls which have been picked are red in color, okay, and the probability of that happening is q squared. Similarly, f of x is equal to 1, the probability is the first ball picked was blue, the second ball picked was red. So, the probability would be pq, or the first ball picked was red and the second ball picked was blue. So, the probability would be qp, pq plus qp will be 2pq, and the probability of picking up both balls, okay, the probability of picking up 2 blue balls is equal to p squared. F of x is equal to is p squared. Okay. Now, you can verify whether the sum of the probabilities is equal to 1. Okay. So, you add up q squared plus 2pq plus p squared. which is nothing but p plus q whole squared. Okay. So, sigma f of xi should be equal to 1. So, you get, when you add up all the probabilities, q squared plus 2 pq plus p squared, which is nothing but q plus p whole squared. Since the probability of picking up a blue ball is 1 minus probability of picking up the red ball, okay, or the probability of picking up a red ball is 1 minus probability of picking up a blue ball, we have q is equal to 1 minus p. You put q is equal to 1 minus p here, you get 1. So, you are having the sum of the probabilities totaling or adding up to 1. Okay. Obviously, the probability values are fractional. You have 8 balls in a box, 3 of them are blue and 5 of them are red. Then the probability of picking up a blue ball would be 3 by 8 and the probability of picking up a red ball would be 5 by 8. Okay. So, you can see that q is equal to 1 minus p. Next, we come to another interesting and important function, the cumulative distribution function, capital F of x, and that is given by f of x is equal to probability of x less than or equal to x. Okay. What is the probability that the random variable takes any value which is less than or equal to x. Okay. So, that is the cumulative distribution function and that is written as sigma xi less than or equal to x up to n f of xi. Okay. So, you are summing over all the values of xi until you either go below x or reach x. There is an interesting distinction between the probability mass function and the cumulative distribution function. Okay. In the probability mass function, you can only apply the function to the possible values of the random variable x. Okay. So, you can only apply the probability mass function to the xi values. If for example, you have another value yi which is not equal to any of the possible xi values, f of yi is equal to 0. Okay. But when you do the cumulative distribution function, this x value need not be xi all the time. It may even be a value between two xi values, between two permitted xi values. For example, if the permitted xi values are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, you can even find the cumulative distribution function probability of random variable x less than or equal to 3.5. So, that is permitted and that value need not be equal to 0. Okay. So, you are adding up the probabilities as we saw in the mathematical equation. This is the cumulative distribution function. Cumulative means adding or totaling. Okay. So, that is why you add up the probabilities up to the value of x. Okay. That x may be equal to allowed value of xi or it may be not equal to xi. Okay. And the cumulative distribution function ranges between 0 to 1. Okay. Even though you are adding the probabilities and the maximum value would be equal to 1 because the sum of the probabilities is equal to 1. And if x is less than or equal to y, f of x is less than or equal to f of y. So, you can either write it as f of x or f of xi, okay, but you cannot write f of capital X. whenever you are doing the cumulative distribution function calculations, there is a possibility of committing mistake. Okay. So, let us see the probability mass function is given to you and you have to find the cumulative distribution function. Okay. And the statement may be similar, but slightly different. Small differences can be noticed. In one case, you have to find probability of b less than or equal to x less than or equal to e. In the second case, it is probability of b less than x less than e. Third case, probability of b less than or equal to x less than e. In the fourth case, it is probability of b less than x less than or equal to e. Okay. So, you may think that all of these would result in the same value. Okay. But that is not going to be the case, as I will demonstrate with an example. Can we write probability of b less than or equal to x less than or equal to e as f of e minus f of b? No, it cannot be written in this fashion. Let us take an example. Okay. So, you are having a cumulative distribution function f of x, small x mind you, and these are the possible outcomes a, b, c, d, e, f. These are the possible values taken by the random variable, and these denote xi values, small xi values. The probability of a occurring is 0.1, b occurring is 0.2, c occurring is 0.3, d is 0.2, e is 0.1 and f is 0.1. Okay. These are the probability values. Okay. And the length of this line corresponds to the probability. This line is twice as long as this line because the probability is 2 times higher. Okay. Now, let us see the probability of the random variable x taking a value less than or equal to e, less than and greater than or equal to b. So, this is what you want to find out. Okay. You want to find the probability that the random variable will take any value between b and e, both included, both b and e included. So, the probability of the random variable taking the value small b is 0.2, c is 0.3, d is 0.2, e is 0.1. You add up 0.1 plus 0.2, 0.3, 0.3 plus 0.3, 0.6, and then 0.6 plus 0.2, 0.8. So, that is the value you get. Okay. And that may be written as probability of x less than or equal to e minus probability of x less than b. Probability of x less than or equal to e is 0.9, 0.1 plus 0.2, 0.3, 0.3 plus 0.3, 0.6, 0.6 plus 0.2, 0.8, 0.8 plus 0.1, 0.9. That is why you get 0.9 here. And then you get probability of x less than b. Less than b is only a, and the probability is 0.1. It is 0.9 minus 0.1. The second case is probability of b less than or equal to x less than e, okay, and that is equal to 0.7. Here b is included, but e is not included. Okay. So, it should be less than e. So, we count 0.2 corresponding to the occurrence for b, probability of occurrence for b. So, 0.2 plus 0.3, 0.5, 0.5 plus 0.2, 0.7. Okay, we are excluding e because it is probability of x less than e minus probability of x less than b. Okay. Probability of x less than e is 0.7, 0.3 is 0.8, sorry, 0.1 plus 0.2, 0.3, 0.3 plus 0.3, 0.6, 0.6 plus 0.2, 0.8 minus probability of x less than b, okay, probability of x less than b, as we saw in the previous case, is 0.1. So, you get 0.8 minus 0.1, which is 0.7. Similarly, you can easily show that probability of b less than x less than or equal to e is 0.6, and probability of b less than x less than e is equal to 0.5. Okay. So, coming back to our original problem statement, what is the probability of b less than or equal to x less than or equal to e? That was not equal to f of e minus f of b, but it is probability of x less than or equal to e minus probability of x less than b, okay, and that was 0.9 minus 0.1, which was equal to 0.8. Okay. So, do not try out some formulae based on intuition, okay, in these kind of situations. Okay. Rather than using these formulae, I would rather advise you to construct the distribution of probabilities and then do the calculations. Anyway, the mathematical formulae are here, but from my point of view, these formulae need not be memorized, but they can be easily implemented, okay, by just using the diagram. Now, we are going to look at something known as moment. Okay. In physics, you might have seen the term moment come into use rather frequently. Okay. Force into distance. Okay. So, here also we have ordinary moments and central moments. So, I will just give the definitions here. So, the expected value of E of x is given by I is equal to 1 to n xi f of xi. This is called as the first ordinary moment. In general, expected value of g of x is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n g of xi into f of xi. Okay. Here you had random variable x, so you put xi here. Here you have g of x, and so you put g of xi here. The function defined by the random variable is implemented on xi inside the summation. Okay. So, if we define g of x as x to the power of k, then the expectation of g of x is called as the kth ordinary moment of the random variable x. So, the kth ordinary moment is represented by m of k is equal to expected value of x of k. The first ordinary moment is represented by m1, which is equal to mean, and that is equal to expected value of x, because k is 1. So, you have expected value of x, and that is equal to mu. So far we have been defining the function g of x as x power k, but we can also define the random variable x as a deviation from a, where a is a constant value. Okay. Earlier we had by default used a as 0, but it need not be the case always. So, we want to put a as a constant value, and we are going to find the kth moment, okay. And remember, k should be an integer value. So, g of x is equal to x minus a to the power of k. The expectation of g of x in such a case is called as the kth moment of the random variable x about a. Okay, the kth moment of the random variable x about a. The moments about the mean are defined as mu of k is equal to expected value of x minus mu to the power of k. So, k can be 0, k can be 1, 2 and so on. Remember, k should be an integer. Okay. So, here we are finding the moment about the mean. Okay. The mean is the center point of the distribution. So, okay. So, it is x minus mu, expected value of x minus mu to the power of k is called as mu k, and these are referred to as the moments about the mean for different values of k. It is also termed as the kth central moment of the random variable x. Since we are taking the moment about the mean, we refer to it as the kth central moment of the random variable x. So, when you put k is equal to 0, mu 0 is e of x minus mu to the power of 0, expected value of 1 is 1. Mu 1, where we put k is equal to 1, so expected value of e of x minus mu to the power of 1 is expected value of x minus mu is equal to mu minus mu is equal to 0. Okay. So, this is the expected value of x minus mu, okay, that we call as mu 1, which happens to be 0. So, mu 0 is 1 and mu 1 is 0. Okay. The second central moment is termed as the variance. The central moment is taken with respect to the mean. So, k is equal to 2. The expected value of x minus mu whole squared is equal to sigma squared. This definition we had seen previously, but now this is called as the second central moment or the second moment about the mean. The square root of these variance is called as the standard deviation. So, e of x minus mu whole squared or mu 2 may be written as m2 minus mu squared, second moment minus mu squared, okay, second ordinary moment minus mu squared. So, you have found the mean, variance and the standard deviation. So, you have to scale it properly, okay, and so you want to see what percentage of the mean or what fraction of the mean is the standard deviation, and so you write the coefficient of variation CV as sigma by mu. It provides a dimensionless measure of the relative amount of variability exhibited by the random variable. Okay. If sigma is very high, okay, sigma is 100, okay, you may think that there is a lot of variation, the standard deviation is pretty high, but you have to find it with respect to the mean value. If the mean is in the order of 200, okay, and the standard deviation is 100, 100 by 200 is pretty high, okay, but if the mean value mu is in the order of 10,000, 100 by 10,000, okay, which is 1 by 100, and that would be 0.01, which is pretty low, okay. So, you have to compare the standard deviation with respect to the mean value. The third central moment or the moment about the mean mu is defined as skewness, okay, and that is given by mu 3 is equal to expected value of x minus mu whole cube, okay. And the significance of the skewness is it illustrates or indicates the asymmetry of the distribution, okay. You can understand that when there are several values of x, they may be distributed about a mean value, okay, and they may not be distributed uniformly with respect to the mean value, and so you may have negative deviations and positive deviations, and the relative difference between the negative and positive deviations with respect to the mean is given by the third central moment. So, third central moment or skewness is a measure of the deviation from the symmetry. Okay. And the dimensionless quantity mu 3 divided by sigma cube is known as the coefficient of skewness. If the distribution is perfectly symmetric, both the skewness and coefficient of skewness both vanish. When the distributions are such that the negative deviations are more than the positive deviations from the mean, the distribution is said to be skewed to the left. Okay. There is dominance of negative deviations when compared to the positive deviations, and so the distribution is said to be skewed to the left, and both mu 3 and gamma 3 take negative values. The fourth central moment is called as the kurtosis, and that is defined as mu 4 is equal to expected value of x minus mu to the power of 4. Okay, it is a measure of the flatness or the sharpness of the probability distribution. Okay, the ratio of the kurtosis to the fourth power of standard deviation is termed as the coefficient of kurtosis. Okay, a distribution with the high value of kurtosis has a sharp peak. On the other hand, a distribution with low value of kurtosis is flat or rounded. When the gamma 4 value is less than 3, the distribution is said to be mildly peaked or platykurtic. Okay. When gamma 4 is greater than 3, the distribution is said to be sharply peaked or leptokurtic. These terms you may encounter in standard texts or even in research papers showing distributions and explaining their characteristic features. You may often come across these terms platykurtic and leptokurtic. So, depending upon whether the peaks are sharp or the distribution is flat and rounded, the appropriate terminology is used. The next topic in our discussion is median for discrete probability distributions. The median xm for a discrete probability distribution is the point within the range of the allowed values of the random variable x such that the cumulative distribution value at xm is exactly 0.5. In mathematical form, sigma I equals 1 to m f of x I is equal to the cumulative distribution value at xm should be equal to 0.5. F of x I is the probability mass function. The xm value here is such that the probability of x less than xm is equal to probability of the random variable x greater than xm are both equal to 0.5. This concludes our brief discussion on the discrete probability distribution functions. We will be now moving on to continuous probability distributions. They are also called as the probability density functions. Hello again. In today's lecture, we will be looking at a few typical problems involving discrete probability distributions and cumulative probability functions. It is suggested that you read the problem statement and try to solve the problem on your own, and if your answers are correct, well and good, you have understood the course material. Otherwise, please look at the solution which will also be provided in this lecture and compare it with your answers. You can find out where you made the mistake. Okay, it's not a one-way street. There may be even a mistake in my calculation, but I have checked it a couple of times. So, I am pretty sure that these problems are error free. Okay. So, the first example is a simple derivation. Okay. We know that the expected value of x is equal to mu, the mean value, okay, and the variance of the random variable x is equal to sigma squared, right. So, do not put sigma here. Sigma means standard deviation and sigma squared means variance. Square root of variance is the standard deviation. So, you have to show that the variance is equal to the expected value of x squared minus mu squared. Okay. The value of e of x squared need not be equal to e of x whole squared. Okay. You should not confuse this with e of x whole squared. Okay. E of x squared is different from e of x whole squared. Now, we know by definition the expected value of x minus mu whole squared is equal to sigma squared. What we will do is we will take the left hand side of this equation and expand it. A minus b whole squared is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So, you have expected value of x squared minus 2x mu plus mu squared, and then we take the expected value term by term. So, we get e of x squared minus 2 mu e of x plus mu squared. You may be asking, wait a second, what is this e of mu squared? How did you write mu squared? The expected value of a constant is a constant. Okay. So, we can write expected value of mu squared as mu squared directly, and that also enabled us to take out the 2 mu when we put the expected value or applied the expected value on 2x mu. So, the 2 mu came out and we simply had e of x. Okay. Now, this is the question which is being repeated here for your convenience. So, we end up with e of x squared minus 2 mu e of x plus mu squared. Repeating what I said a bit earlier, the expected value of a number or a constant is the same number or a constant. Okay. Now, if you look at this, expected value of x is equal to mu. So, we can put mu here and we will get e of x squared minus 2 mu squared plus mu squared. That is what I have shown in this slide. You can see that it is e of x squared minus 2 mu squared plus mu squared, which leads to e of x squared minus mu squared. So, the expected value of x squared is equal to sigma squared plus mu squared. Okay. Let us see the next question. If e of x is equal to mu, which we know very well, and v of x is equal to sigma squared, how will you find E of x squared? Okay. The solution is, if you are already having the mean and variance with you, you can use the result from the previous example and take it as E of x squared is equal to sigma squared plus mu squared. Okay. Since sigma squared and mu squared are already available, you can just add them up and then say that expected value of x squared is the sum of these two. Okay. However, that is one way of doing it. Okay. Anyway, if those values, these two values are not available to you, then you have to do some calculations and find mu squared and sigma squared. Okay. I am going to show you how to find E of x squared independently. So, rather than doing somewhat or relatively tedious calculations for sigma squared, what you can do is you can first find out E of x squared. You already know, or you can calculate mu squared rather easily, and then you can subtract mu squared from E of x squared to get the variance sigma squared. Okay. So, let us see the calculations. An independent way to find out E of x squared is to use the definition of E of x squared, which is nothing but sigma, the summation going from I equals 1 to n xi squared f of xi. Okay. Now, let us go to the third example, where we will numerically calculate the mean, variance and the expected value of x squared. Okay. So, you are given the probability mass function. Okay. The random variable x, capital X, can take these 6 values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay. These are discrete values, and please note that these are the only permitted values of the random variable. You cannot have a value like 0.5 or 1.5. Okay. And this is f of xi. F of xi, if you recall, is the probability of the random variable taking the value 0. Okay. For this particular case, f of xi is 0.1. Okay. And in general, f of xi is the probability that the random variable takes the value xi. Xi can be, in this case, any number involving 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay. So, among all these cases, you can very easily verify that the probability values are not the same. Okay. 0 is having 0.1, 1 is having 0.05, 2 is having 0.3 and so on. Okay. So, whenever you are given problems like this, the first thing you should do is to see whether the problem is correct. Okay. That is very important. Okay. We can still carry out the routine mathematical exercises and give the answer, but there may be a printing mistake or there may be a genuine mistake and the problem itself may be erroneous. Okay. So, we have to check the problem and see whether the statement is correct and the data given are correct. The first check you have to make here is to see whether the probabilities all add up to 1. So, I have given the table again, and these are the probability values or f of xi values, and when I am adding these values I get 1. The numbers are not too difficult, so I can even add it up manually. 0.1 plus 0.05 is 0.15, 0.15 plus 0.3 is 0.45, 0.45 plus 0.4 is 0.85, 0.85 plus 0.1 is 0.95, and 0.95 plus 0.05 adds up to 1. Good. So, there is nothing wrong in the given probability distribution. So, the equation is correct. Now, we can go ahead and find the other statistical parameters like the mean, variance, standard deviation and the expected value of x squared. You might recollect that I told you that there are two different ways to find E of x squared. First way is to do in the following manner. You can calculate mu squared, you can also calculate sigma squared, add the two and get E of x squared. That is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to multiply f of xi with xi squared, okay, and then add. The total sum will give expected value of E of x squared. Okay. So, let us do it in both the ways. Right. So, this is your table. Now, you can set up the problem and its data in a suitable spreadsheet. The data is given here. The first column contains the xi values, the second column is the column of probabilities. You can see that the sum of the probabilities is equal to 1, and then I find xi f of xi. Okay. The purpose of doing that is to find the mean. Now, what you have to do is find out xi f of xi, right. Please note that sigma xi f of xi will not be equal to 1. Okay. Only sigma of f of xi will be equal to 1. Sigma of xi f of xi will be equal to the mean, okay, the average value of the given discrete probability distribution. So, you can see that I multiply 0 into 0.1, I get 0, 1 into 0.05, 0.05, 2 into 0.3, 0.6, 3 into 0.4, 1.2, 4 into 0.1, 0.4, 5 into 0.05, 0.25, whereas sigma xi f of xi, you can directly do the summing from the spreadsheet. Otherwise, you can do it manually for the simple case 0.65, 1.85, 2.25 plus 0.25 is 2.5. So, the average or mean value is 2.5. Now, you have to calculate the expected value of x squared, which means you have to find E of x squared. So, what you do here is you take the square of xi squared into f of xi. So, 0 squared into 0.1 is 0, 1 into 0.05 is 0.05, 4 into 0.3 is 1.2, 9 into 0.4 is 3.6, 16 into 0.1 is 1.6, 25 into 0.05 is 1.25. When you add this up, it comes to 7.7, and this is the expected value of x squared. Now, to calculate the variance, you have to find x of I minus mu whole squared into f of xi. What you are doing is find the deviation of the x of I value from the mean value, okay, square it. Okay. So, you have to find 0 minus 2.5, that means it is minus 2.5. When you square it, it will become 6.25. When you multiply it by 0.1, it becomes 0.625. Then 1 minus 2.5 is minus 1.5. So, minus 1.5 into minus 1.5 is 2.25. That you multiply by 0.05, you get 0.1125, and then you do 4 minus 2.5, that is 1.5, okay, and square of that is 2.25, and then you do with multiplied by 0.3. Similarly, you can do it for all the other values. I will just pause a moment to do some calculations here. 2 minus 2.5, actually I made a mistake, okay, it is not 4 minus 2.5, that is a mistake, it is 2 minus 2.5, which is minus 0.5. So, minus 0.5 squared will be 0.25, and then 0.25 into 0.3 is 0.075. Okay. So, these are some typical mistakes you can make when you are doing hand calculations. These mistakes are unlikely when you do the calculations directly in the spreadsheet, cutting and pasting the formula in the cells. Similarly, you can do 3 minus 2.5 is 0.5, 0.25 into 0.4 is 0.1, and similarly you can get the other values. So, the total sum of the squared deviations multiplied by the respective probability distribution values is 1.45. This is nothing but the variance. The sum is the variance. Okay. So, summarizing the values we have got, we found the mean to be 2.5. The variance we found from the previous example is 1.45. The expected value of x squared from the previous example was 7.7, and we can also cross check whether this variance of x, okay, this variance of x is equal to 1.45. This is from the direct method. Again, you can see that there is a mistake here, which I will correct now. Right. So, earlier this f of xi was missing. Now, I have put variance of x is equal to sigma is equal to 1 xi minus mu whole squared into f of xi, that is coming to 1.45. When you cross check it, you can see that variance of x is again coming to 1.45. When we subtract mu squared from e of x squared, we get e of x squared as 7.7 minus mu squared 6.25. So, 7.7 minus 6.25 is 1.45. The standard deviation will be the square root of the variance, and square root of 1.45 is 1.204. The results are nicely summarized in the form of a table here. The parameter is mean e of x squared, variance of x or sigma squared, and sigma. The formula is also given here. Again, you have to make a correction here. So, you can see that it is sigma is equal to 1 to n xi minus mu whole squared into f of xi, and for that we got a value of 1.45. Okay. So, these are the results for the different parameters, and it is summarized in this table. Now we go to an interesting problem. You are having E of x is equal to mu and variance of x is equal to sigma squared. So you have to find out the expected value of E of x minus mu cubed. Right. So I hope all of you remember what is a minus b whole cube. Okay. A minus b whole cube is a cube minus 3a squared b plus 3ab squared minus b cube. So using that, instead of a and b, we put x and mu. X minus mu whole cube is x cube minus 3x squared mu plus 3x mu squared minus mu cube. So we have to again apply the expectation on this x minus mu whole cube. We get E of x cube minus 3 mu E of x squared plus 3 mu squared E of x minus mu cube. Please recollect that when you apply the expectation on a constant or a number, then you get the same constant or the number. Okay. Only for a variable, a random variable, you have the expectation of that x having a non-constant value. You have to do some mathematical calculations with that. Okay. Once you are given the random sample and you are given the data, then you can find the appropriate expectation. So as of now, we are not given any data. We are only given x minus mu whole cube, and we have to find the expectation. Okay. So to summarize, we get E of x cube minus 3 mu E of x squared plus 3 mu squared E of x minus mu cube. We do not want to leave the result here because there is some possibility of further simplification. So you know that the expected value of x squared is equal to mu squared plus sigma squared. We saw that in one of the previous examples. That is what is summarized in this table here. So you have expected value of x is equal to mu, expected value of x squared is equal to mu squared plus sigma squared. So in this E of x squared, you substitute mu squared plus sigma squared. Minus 3 mu into mu squared will become minus 3 mu cube. That will cancel out with this 3 mu cube, and you will be having E of x cube minus 3 mu sigma squared minus mu cube. Right. Now we come to a quite an interesting problem. I set up the problem myself. You can see whether you can do it on your own. You may want to pause and then do the problem yourself. Even the previous problems, I created my own data, and the rest was routine. You have to just do the numerical computation. The one involving E of x minus mu whole cube is a standard result. Okay. For example, Ogonoyege's random phenomena book has it as an example, has an exercise problem. Okay. So now if you look at this problem, the first subdivision states identify the general form f of x. Okay. You want to give a mathematical expression which will describe this given data. Okay. When x is equal to 1, the probability distribution takes a value a. If it is 2, it takes a value a to the power of 2. If it is 3, it takes the value a to the power of 3. So the general form of x is easy to identify. It is simply a to the power of x, where x I values can be 1, 2 and 3. Okay. The second question or the second subdivision states that what is the allowed value of A if the above satisfies the criteria for probability mass function. Okay. So, we have to determine a value for A, okay, using the conditions that need to be satisfied for a probability distribution function. Okay. Identify the general form of f of x, as I said a short while earlier, f of x is equal to a power x, okay, a squared a cube. So, this exponent is matching with the x value, so it becomes a power x. Okay. So, the important condition that needs to be satisfied for this function to be a probability distribution function is the sum of the probabilities should be equal to 1. There is another criterion that these f of x I values should be positive. Okay. So, we will see if both these conditions are being met. So, what we have to do is sum the f of x values over all the possible values of x. So, a plus a squared plus a cube, that should be equal to 1. So, what is the value of a which will satisfy this equation? It is a geometric series. So, you may want to take the summation formula and do it, okay, and you will get a into 1 minus a whole cube by 1 minus a. It is a more compact expression, okay, and you have to find the value of a such that this equation will become equal to 1. You cannot put a is equal to 1 because then this summation expression will blow up. Okay. You may think of expanding 1 minus a cube. Okay. You know 1 minus a cube can be expanded into 1 minus a into 1 plus a squared plus a, or to put it in another way, 1 minus a whole cube can be expanded into 1 minus a into 1 plus a squared, right. So, the 1 minus a will cancel out and you will have again a plus a squared plus a cube. So, we are back where we started. In fact, there is no need for us to take the summation of a using the geometric progression. Okay. We could have directly taken this as the equation and try to solve for a such that this equation satisfies the constraint that the 3 terms should add up to 1. So, we do not really need to take this, do the summation and take the summation. So, it is not really necessary. Now, there are various ways to skin the cat. The first way is to simply use trial and error. You do not know where to start. Okay. Obviously, the value of a is likely to be between 0 to 1. If you put a is equal to 0, you get the sum to be 0, and if you put the value of a to be 1, the sum becomes 3. So, you are ranging between 0 and 3. You want to find the value of a such that the sum is equal to 1. So, you can do trial and error, or you can use Newton-Raphson method, or you can use appropriate algorithm in MATLAB. Okay. And eventually we find the root as reported in one of the softwares as 0.543698. We do not really need all these decimal values. You can report the answer as 0.5437. Okay. So, after finding this root, we need to do a check. What you need to do is take the obtained value and plug it back into the equation you are trying to solve and see whether the equation is satisfied with this identified value. So, what you may want to do is take 0.5437, then square it and cube it and add all these 3 numbers and see whether the answer comes to be 1. In our case, this answer would be around 1.000 and some decimal numbers, which is pretty close to 1. So, we have identified the value of A to be 0.5437, and then what we can do is, instead of giving the value as A squared and A cube, we can directly enter the value of enter the value of A and then give the actual numbers. Let us do the next example. Here we are going to do an example involving the cumulative distribution function. Okay. So, the problem statement is like this: you are having different intervals of x, okay, and then the cumulative probability distribution function value is also reported for each of these intervals. Okay. Now, the first interval is x is less than -5, and the f of x value, which is the cumulative distribution function value, that is equal to 0. Then you have the interval -5 less than or equal to x less than 1. You have the cumulative distribution function value to be 0.25, and then you have 1 less than or equal to x less than 2. The cumulative distribution function value is 0.5. Then you have 2 is less than or equal to x less than 5. The cumulative distribution function value is 0.75, and then 5 less than or equal to x 1.0. So, one thing you may notice about this interval is it is involving no equality sign, it is only x less than -5. Then the next interval is having -5 less than or equal to x less than 1. So, you are having less than or equal to here. Then you have 1 less than or equal to x less than 2, 2 less than or equal to x less than 5, 5 less than or equal to x. Okay. So, in the last 4 intervals, you are having the first as the less than or equal to sign, and then the other part is not having that equality contribution, it is just directly less than for the 3 intervals. Okay. Just an observation. So, now we want to sketch this distribution plot of f of x versus x, okay, and then find the probability mass function from the given data. We are given the cumulative distribution function. So, we need to extract the probability distribution function from the given cumulative distribution function. Okay. As I told earlier, we need to check whether the problem statement is correct. Okay. We are not making any mistakes such as putting capital X here. Okay. So, you cannot put capital X here because capital X is the abstract random variable, and once the data is available, it takes a value small x. Okay. So, that is something which we have to watch out for. It is also f of small x here. This is a very interesting diagram. You can see some lines with some headers and footers, or you may want to call it as a tail and a head. The head is sometimes a hollow circle or it is a full circle. Okay. That is because the cumulative distribution function takes the value of 0 until x less than -5. Okay. At x value of -5, it takes the value 0.25 and continues to take that value until it reaches 1, and once it has reached a value of 1, it jumps to 0.5. Okay. So, this is the cumulative distribution function having a value of 0, and at -5 there is a discontinuity. The function is not continuous. If the function was continuous, the value of f of x, whether you approach a value either from the left or from the right should be the same, but there is a discontinuity here. When you are approach the function value, when you are approaching minus 5 from the left is 0. If you are approaching minus 5 from the right, it is 0.25. So, this is a inevitable discontinuity at minus 5 and all the other points where the interval switches. Okay. So, at minus 5 and up to 1, the cumulative distribution function takes the value of 0.25 and then it jumps to 0.5 until you reach the value of 2. Okay. So, it takes the value of 0.5 until you reach the value of 2, and once again there is a discontinuity at the value of 2 and the functional value jumps from 0.5 to 0.75. So, up to minus 5 it is 0, at minus 5 it jumps to 0.25, it goes up to 1 and then takes another jump. So, there is a discontinuity here, takes a value of 0.5, goes to 2, there is a discontinuity here, it takes a jump, it goes to 0.75 and then it goes all the way up to 5 where it takes another jump and reaches a value of 1, at which point it saturates. Okay. Cumulative distribution function is the sum of the probabilities, and once you have reached the end of the permitted values for the random variable x, then you should have reached 1. Okay. So, there is no further change or jumps or discontinuities beyond this point. Okay. Now, the next step is to retrieve the probability distribution function, okay, and how to do that. So, you can see that the probability mass function or the probability distribution function is defined at minus 5, 1, 2 and 5. Okay. So, the permitted values of the random variable x are minus 5, 1, 2 and 5. At each of these values the probability is 0.25. Okay. You can see that whenever we reach the assigned value for the random variable, the jump occurred by 0.25 units. So, from 0 you went to 0.25, that means the probability value corresponding to minus 5 is 0.25. Since you are adding the probabilities, when you went to 1, the probability value is again 0.25 at 1, because you are going from 0.25 to 0.5. The difference is 0.5 minus 0.25, which is again 0.25. So, at 1 the probability is again 0.25, okay, and the total sum is 0.25 plus 0.25, which is 0.5, and that is what you are shown here. And when you go to the value of 2, there is a jump to 0.75. So, from 0.5 you have gone to 0.75, an increment of 0.25, and that is the probability value at x is equal to 2. Similarly, at the x value of 5, the probability is again 0.25. Okay. In this particular example, it is clear that all the values of x have equal probabilities. Okay. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You are having 4 values of x, minus 5, 1, 2 and 5. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of them is having a probability value of 0.25. So, when you add 0.25 4 times, you get 1. So, the sum of f of x is equal to 1 as it should be. Now, let us go to the 7th example. Okay. You have to prove that the variance of a constant is 0 and the variance of a linear combination of random variable, in this case it is a simple linear combination ax plus b. Okay. For the particular case of variance of ax plus b, you have to simply show that it is equal to a squared variance of x. This is an important result, we will be frequently encountering it in our course. First, let us go to part A. Variance of a constant is 0. Okay. So, the variance of b by definition is expected value of b minus mu whole squared, okay, where mu is equal to expected value of x. For a constant b, expected value of b is equal to b. Okay. So, you have expected value of b minus b whole squared, that is equal to 0. In this case, the x is taking a value of b. Okay. So, expected value of b minus b whole squared is equal to 0. Let us go to the next part. Variance of ax plus b is equal to a squared variance of x. So, we use the definition for variance again. Expected value of, instead of x we have ax, so we just put ax here, ax minus mu whole squared, where mu is equal to expected value of a of x. Okay. So, expected value of a of x is nothing but a times mu. So, we have variance of a of x is equal to expected value of a of x minus a of a into mu whole squared. Okay. So, we can take within the bracket a is common. So, you can take a outside. So, it becomes a squared. When you square it, a squared into x minus mu whole squared, you can take a squared outside the bracket, and so you have a squared into expected value of x minus mu whole squared, which is equal to a squared into variance of x. Okay. This is an important result which we will apply frequently. So, this concludes our session on example problems involving discrete probability distributions. We will not be extensively using these discrete probability distribution functions, okay, because in our real life problems we assume the random variable to be continuous. Okay. And when you have continuous distributions, instead of calling it as the probability distribution function, we call it as the probability density function. Okay. And in the discrete probability distribution cases, we were using the sigma notation or the summation symbol. Okay. When you go in for continuous probability distributions or the density functions, you will be using the integral sign. Okay. There is a lot of use in the discrete notation also. Sometimes when you are not able to do the integration analytically, you may want to do the calculations for finding the integral using numerical schemes, and these numerical schemes involve the summation of different quantities. So, even though we are not going to use the discrete probability distributions that much, it forms the necessary background for the next step, that is the continuous probability distributions. Okay. There also we have the expected value of the x squared, variance of x, variance of ax, and so on. Okay. These are just illustrative problems. You can find a lot of problems, okay, in the reference book I mentioned. by Montgomery and Runger. These problems also have answers. Okay. The odd numbered problem answers are given, if I remember correctly. So, you can work out some of these problems and gain practice. Okay. The advice is do the problems even if it appears to be simple, preferably by hand. Okay. And then you can also verify your hand calculations with spreadsheet calculations. Okay. Oftentimes when you are doing statistical analysis of data, there may be a silly mistake creeping somewhere. Okay. And sometimes when the mistake is made at the very beginning of your data processing, it becomes difficult to detect at a later stage, and sometimes your results may not be as you expect, just because you have calculated the mean wrongly or the variance wrongly. Okay. And the current trend is to go in for softwares. Okay. Many softwares are available. I mentioned Minitab. Okay. But these kind of hand calculations are essential so that you appreciate the significance of various parameters. Okay. And you really have a feel for what they really mean. Okay. So, to summarize, do as many problems as your time permits. Make sure that whatever you have done it correctly, and cross check with the answers. We will go to the next lecture session from now.